These people narrowly escape serial killers.
I've been abducted.
This 911 call in 2016 was of a kidnapped woman in a vacant house.
Who abducted you? Where's she at now?
Asleep in the bedroom. I'm in the bedroom with them. Please hurry.
Is there any way you can get out of the building?
I don't know without waking him, and I'm scared.
Does he have a weapon?
He's got a taser. He had me tied up.
Where is he?
I'm sleeping.
Still sleeping?
Les Trent has more.
It was then that police made a shocking discovery. They had a suspected serial killer in custody. The bodies of 2 women were inside 2 vacant homes in Ashland, Ohio.
The suspect, Sean Great, reportedly led cops to the body of a 3rd woman 15 miles away.
We did talk to people, too, who said that the suspect in this case, Sean Great, had come up to them and actually invited them into this home here, that they turned down that invitation.
Police identified Stacy Stanley, a mom of 2 who was abducted from a gas station a week before.
It's heart-wrenching. And as a family member, and all of us out here looking for her, she was right there.
Her family members claim cops didn't take her disappearance seriously.
Well, we want to know why it took so long for the police to help our family. That's what I would like to know. We've been begging for the last 4 or 5 days.
Are you going to let me have a press conference, or are you going to continue to interrupt?
We combed this area and rattled his cage for no thanks to these police officers.
Sean Great was convicted of multiple accounts, including aggravated murder. He was sentenced to death. In 2017, police rescued Kayla Brown, who was kidnapped by a serial killer in South Carolina.
Just a girl. Just a girl, just a girl. How are you, honey?
This is bolt cutters.
This is our best friend. He's a paramedic, sweetheart.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're going to get you out of there, okay?
Just hang loose for me.
Anybody got I need a handcuff key.
The Spartanburg County Sheriff said she was found chained up like a dog in a storage container. She had been in there for 2 months. Police came to her rescue after hearing screams from inside the container, which was on the property of 45-year-old Todd Kohlhepp, a local real estate agent.
Todd Kohlhepp shot Charlie Carver 3 times in the chest, wrapped him in a blue tarp, put him in the bucket of the tractor, locked me down here, and I never seen him again.
Okay.
The next month, Kayla Brown came face to face with him for the first time since his capture.
How long were you held captive?
65 days.
The shipping container was hidden by dense woods on Kohlhepp's sprawling 95-acre ranch in South Carolina.
My neck's attached to the wall up here.
Okay.
Sir, do you have any questions of this witness regarding her testimony?
No, sir.
Mostly, I just want to say thank you to everyone for all the prayers and all the work you put into looking for me. If it wasn't for everyone out there, I don't think I would be here today.
Kohlhepp pled guilty to 7 murders, including a quadruple murder at a motorcycle shop in 2003. He also pled guilty to raping Kayla Brown. As part of his plea agreement, he was sentenced to life in prison. In 1991, a man spoke to Inside Edition about the close encounter he had with John Wayne Gacy.
Tell me, how did he lure his victims?
He primarily used the guise of being a police officer. John was into the police thing. He had a Chicago police star. He had a car. He'd buy a brand new car every year that would always be black.
On the way to his house, he was boasting that he was a police officer. And he showed me his gun and his car. It looked like a police car, like an unmarked police car. It had a spotlight and everything.
He didn't want to identify himself, but says he met Gacy at a bar and was invited to his house.
Did he give you drugs?
Yeah. And he told me to try this other stuff. It's better. So I tried it, and a minute or so later, I passed out. I ended up in the bedroom. And he was messing me.
He was sexually assaulting you?
Yes. And I tried to push him off, and I couldn't.
You're probably one of the few that ever got away alive. How did you do it?
I don't know. Well, I told him I wanted to go back to my car. And he said, well, okay, I got to go to church anyway, so I'll give you a ride back. And he gave me a ride back, and he gave me a handful of speeders. And I got back in my car and went home.
Like nothing happened?
Yeah.
What was your reaction when Gacy was arrested?
I got lucky. I got lucky he didn't kill me.
In 2016, Rhonda Stapley broke her silence about escaping Ted Bundy.
I thought that he was going to kiss me. Instead, he said very quietly, "Do you know what? I'm going to kill you."
In 1974, she was a 21-year-old pharmacy student at the University of Utah. She says she first encountered Bundy while she was waiting for a bus.
A tan Volkswagen drove by slowly, and then it kind of stopped and backed up, and the cute driver leaned over and rolled down the passenger window and asked me if I'd like a ride.
Bundy was responsible for the torture, rape, and murder of at least 36 young women.
He told me his name was Ted, and he was a first-year law student.
Rhonda took Inside Edition back to the remote canyon where Bundy drove her. She says he strangled her unconscious, but then revived her at least 5 times.
It was a game. He liked watching me die.
It was like coming out of some kind of horrible trance or dream. I can only liken it to after, I don't want to over-dramatize it, but to have been possessed by something so awful and so alien.
So how did Rhonda finally escape? She says she fell into water trying to run away when Bundy's back was turned.
The river swept me away from him and probably saved my life.
She floated downstream before pulling herself out. She says she was afraid to call police or tell her own family.
I felt ashamed and I was embarrassed. I felt stupid. I thought that my mom would make me drop out of school and go home.
I just feel really bad that she had to go through all that alone.
Rhonda wrote the book I Survived Ted Bundy to help cope with the encounter.
Ted Bundy said, "You don't have a right to whine and cry at me. You should be thanking me that you're even still alive. I can kill you anytime I want."
Ted Bundy was executed for the murder of a 12-year-old girl.
In 1989, Ted Bundy was executed in the state of Florida. Kathy Kleiner Rubin, who survived being attacked by him, had the opportunity to watch but decided not to.
I had given him enough mental energy. I was not going to give him another time to face me or me face him and see him die. I know he killed so many women, and I heard that he whimpered when it was time for him to die, and he cried and he said, "Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me." And I imagine those were the words that the victims said just as he was about to kill them. All those beautiful women, they're crying, "Please don't kill me." And he did kill them, and he was electrocuted.
Kathy was just 20 years old in 1978 when she says Bundy let himself into her sorority house in Florida after escaping prison in Colorado weeks earlier. Her book, A Light in the Dark, Surviving More Than Ted Bundy, details what happened that night.
The door was broken. So this person saw the door was broken, picked up a log that was by the fireplace and went through sorority. He went upstairs, and the first room he got to was Margaret Bowman's room. He attacked her and beat her with that log that he had picked up. He then went across the hall and killed Lisa Levy with the same log that he had killed Margaret with. The next thing he did was cross the hall and come into my room.
Kathy says she was woken up when Bundy tripped over a trunk on the floor in her room, but she didn't have enough time to react when she saw him.
I look up and I see the silhouette, the shadow of someone standing next to me. And I saw him raise his arm up over his head, and he had that log, the log he killed Margaret and Lisa with, and he slammed it down on my face. He slammed it so hard that he shattered my chin, he shattered my jaw. I received cuts in my cheek that opened up, and you could see my mouth on the inside and my teeth. And all of a sudden, our room became bright. It shone a light. It was bright in the bedroom, and now I could see this person clearly. And as I stood there in the light, he saw himself, and he started getting antsy and paced back and forth. And that light was a sorority sister, was brought home late from a night. And that light was her boyfriend's light illuminating our bedroom. And as he turned and let her off, he turned in the driveway, and that's when the room turned dark again. And I'm still in my little ball, and I'm hurting, and it feels like knives and everything you can think of in my face. And I'm still walled up in this little ball, waiting for him to come back.
She says the headlights were enough to scare Bundy, and he ran out of the house. Despite the pain she was in, she and her roommate survived the attack. But 2 of her sorority sisters, Margaret Bowman and Lisa Levy, were killed. Kathy says recovery was tough and she didn't know if she would survive the trauma she experienced. When asked to sit for a deposition, she says she was able to, but she wasn't expecting Bundy to be in the same room with her.
And at the end of the table, after I sat down, I looked up and there was Bundy. He was sitting at the other end of the table. And he was like, come on, let's get over this. And as he was executed, there was a white flag that shone up above the prison. And I looked at my husband and I started crying, and I wailed. And I wasn't thinking of me. I was thinking of all the 32 women he had killed, mutilated, and taken out of this world so young. And then I thought of Margaret and Lisa, my sorority sisters. They suffered, and they shouldn't have either. And I cried for them as well. The book itself tells a bit of my story, but mainly it focuses on telling that Bundy was not the cute guy that everyone thought he was. He wasn't smart. He wasn't good. He was just a bad person. He would kill to collect the souls of the women he killed, and he killed up to 32 that we know of. And in my book, I talk about each of the women, all 32 of them, and I tell a little bit about them, each of their loves, their dreams, what they wanted to do, things that were important to them. I wanted to bring a voice to them so that they were not forgotten.
In 2019, before the Ted Bundy movie starring Zac Efron was released, Marylynne Chino, the best friend of Bundy's longtime girlfriend, Elizabeth Kloepfer, spoke with Inside Edition.
I will probably never forget looking at him for the first time in my life. He was across the room, and he had on a yellow shirt, and we sat down, and that was the beginning of knowing Ted Bundy. She wanted to be married and have a family, and she wanted to marry Ted.
Marylynne says the pair came to suspect Ted was responsible for a series of murders in the Seattle area.
He'd leave in the middle of the night when he was with Liz. Well, somebody was at my house and they left and came back. I'd certainly question that. You know, what are you going out in the middle of the night for?
A police sketch appeared in a local newspaper.
She came down and threw this picture on, and it was one of the composites. And she said, who do you think that is? I said, well, it's Ted. Why? And then she burst into tears.
They reported their fears to the police, but she says they were ignored.
They didn't make a big deal out of it because they had something like 500 phone calls of people saying stuff like that.
One night, Bundy gave Marylynne a ride home in his Volkswagen Beetle.
I could have gotten an Academy Award for being in the car with him that day, you know, and he took me home and I was just relieved, and I don't think I ever got in the car with him again.
Her friend continued to date Bundy and still longed for marriage, despite her suspicions.
She called me and said, I'm going with Ted now, and if anything happens, I want you to tell my parents. And my response to that was, I can't do that. I can't take that burden.
Lily Collins played Bundy's girlfriend in the movie. She says the role gave her nightmares, but says the real woman gave her insight into the character.
She was so gracious. Her and her daughter Molly were so gracious in inviting me in and giving me material to look at and speaking to me.
Some say the movie glamorized Bundy by casting heartthrob Zac Efron, but Marylynne says the real Bundy was very different.
I get really angry when people, he's so good looking and he's so wonderful, you know, but he's a manipulating creep.
Marylynne was relieved when Bundy died.
I was relieved, completely relieved, because I knew in my heart of hearts that he'd never stop killing people.
We're going to have a great time together.
In 1978, serial killer Rodney Alcala was a contestant on the dating game.
I'm called the Banana, and I look really good.
No one had any idea that he already launched his killing spree.
He was a real creepy guy, a real idiot.
Jed Mills was bachelor number 2, and nearly 40 years later, he was still haunted by their encounter.
This creep comes up and he puts his face practically in my face and he says, I always get the girl. When I think about what he said, I always get my girl, he kills him. That's what he's talking about.
What's your best time?
The best time is at nighttime.
Despite his weird behavior on the dating game, the Bachelorette chose him but never went on the date because she reportedly found him creepy. Alcala would later be found guilty of 7 murders. Investigators believed he may have actually killed up to 130 victims based on the photos found on his property.
Say hello to Rodney Alcala!
The disturbing story was made into a movie, The Dating Game Killer, with Guillermo Diaz and Carrie Preston.
He's got no remorse. He's just a dark soul.
The movie showed how Alcala would lure his victims by posing as a professional photographer.
Let's get some test shots.
Detectives say he would toy with his victims, often strangling them and allowing them to regain consciousness before finally killing them.
Please, will you untie me?
Incredibly, he had already served time in prison for sexual assault before he appeared on the dating game. Somehow, the producers of the show overlooked his criminal record.
What are you doing to find my daughter? He was a convicted rapist when he did the dating game. Had served time, and they let him go on national television.
For Inside Edition Digital, I'm Andrea Swindall.